Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Canola, and welcome back once again to the latest edition of the movie Battleground. We are here once again continuing our 2023 tournament. This is the second matchup of that tournament. So I'll go ahead. Last week, if you guys were here, I'll pull up the bracket. We got started. There it is for you again, with Madi taking the first win of the tournament versus Ryan Payne. And tonight we're going to be moving down a couple slots on that roster there to the number 6 versus the number 11, Noah McCausland versus Alex Martinez. Noah, of course, has seen an uptake in performance since the last time he was really in a tournament. Of course, he was in the original tournament when we relaunched the league, although that didn't exactly go as planned. Probably his 2 toughest losses came in that tournament. And then last year, he had a very good win in the first round, but ran into a juggernaut in Joe and just wasn't able to take it any further. Since that match, though, he's picked up multiple wins and he's put himself in a much better position in the league, not only finding himself in a higher slot, but certainly with a lot more experience under his belt going into this tournament. Alex, on the other hand, kind of finds himself in the same position he was in last year. He joined the league mid-season. He was able to pick up a win right before tournament season, got into the first round, and then was unfortunately unable to advance past Alan Shepard at that point. Between a mix of personal schedules and things on our end unfortunately falling apart, we weren't able to get him a match this season until right before the tournament, which he won very confidently and is now here in the tournament once again. And so for him, it's a case of repeating history. Can he change the timeline this time and move forward past the previous point? We're going to speak to him about that first. We're going to introduce our competitors. Coming in with a record of 2 wins, 1 defeat, he is the number 11 seed in the tournament, Alex Martinez. Alex, welcome back, sir. Obviously, I wasn't here for your return match last time, so it's good to have you back personally. How are you feeling tonight going into this?
Good. This is debates I always find are very fun for me. I make I do my more competitive side in the competitive trivia aspects of it, but I know a lot about movies myself just conversationally. This for me is just play. I like doing this, something that I do in my spare time. I do shows and podcasts talking about classic film or recent film. This is just a continuation, an extension of that, getting to interact with people that I don't normally get to talk to regularly. So this should be interesting. Should be fun.
Yeah, of course. And so, honestly, it's a different type of opponent. Noah's not the same type of player that Alan is, but it's a very similar situation to last year of you're paired up in the tournament against somebody who has more experience than you. Know, obviously, you yourself at least do have an extra win under your belt, but does that play at all, or are you just very relaxed about this is what it is, let's take it and see what happens?
And Noah's a very stressful opponent to play, actually, because I do believe he is the type to be incredibly prepared. I know he will have done the same searches that I have. He will have watched very similar movies that I had. And just speaking from a kind of a backstage point of view, probably better to talk about this later, he had a lot of the same picks that I would have made. If he hadn't have chosen those picks, I probably would have made very similar ones to him as well. So, like, it's obvious that we are of a very similar mindset. And that's kind of the hardest matchups. Whereas with Alan, I was yelling a lot, and I kind of lost the yelling battle. With Noah, I expect a very calculated approach, which is going to be really interesting.
All right, well, let's see how it goes. And we're going to go ahead and sit you in the back for just a moment and bring in your opponent. Coming in with a record of 6 wins, 5 defeats, and 1 knockout victory. He is the number 6 seed of the tournament, Noah McCausland. Noah, welcome back, sir. Obviously, coming into this tournament, technically fresh off of a loss, but still good performances the entire season. How are you feeling coming into this?
You're stressed. It's the same as Alex. Alex is no slouch, regardless of the time, the little bit of time that he has in this league. He's no slouch, and I shouldn't take him as such. I know he's going to be prepared, just like he said I was going to be. I know he knows his stuff, and I know he knows how to debate. I've seen his previous matches. He's got a lot of talent and a lot of skill, and so I'm nervous. Even though I'm in a 6th lead, I'm very nervous about this matchup. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully we put on a good show for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, I think that summarizes it pretty well here. So we're going to go ahead and bring Alex back in. Guys, let's go ahead and jump into this. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. It is the first of 3 points wins the match. Each round of debate is worth 1 point. If a competitor picks up the first 3 points of the match, that will be a victory by knockout. And if at the end of 4 rounds we have a 2-2 tie, we do have a blind round question prepared, but we will only make you worry about that if we have to. In terms of the first 4 rounds, the competitors have had the questions. They've had their time to prep. Then we got 60 seconds to open their argument, followed by a 2-minute expansion period, a 4-minute open debate, and a 60-second closing argument. Following that, I have 3 judges backstage in the form of Will, Carrie, and Maria. They will join us on screen, at which point they will decide based on the debates who should get the point. With all that said, though, guys, are we ready to go?
Yeah.
Good luck, Alex.
Good luck.
All right, so jumping into this, as I said with the last match, a change that we have made for the tournament this year compared to years past is that the competitors, every single tournament match will get to choose 2 strengths. So it means that because, the reward for being amongst the top ranked players in the league and being here is you get 2 strengths per match. So every topic at the very least is something a competitor wants to discuss. And as we did last match, where we began with something we've never talked about in director John Woo, A Nightmare on Elm Street is a franchise that, despite the fact that it's been on the strengths list since the very beginning, I don't believe it ever been selected until this point. I mean, we may have had a question about it that I've thrown into a match, but no one's ever actually picked it. And obviously, there's a lot of angles you could take this from, but I think an element in horror films that's often not talked about, more so because of the nature of what a horror film is and what you're looking for in it, is the performance. Now, just to straight up ask performance, Robert Englund will win. Honestly, depending on the film, best and worst, probably. He commits to everything he is asked to do, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, and you have to respect that. So the question these guys were asked here is, what is the best performance by a leading actor in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, aside from Robert Englund? Because, of course, if he's on the table, that does make for a tougher debate. So let's focus on his victims, so to speak. Who's turning in the best performance of the bunch? That said, behind the scenes, Noah, because you are the higher ranked player, you have the choice of which questions to go first on. You chose to go first on 2 and 4, which means, Alex, you are going to go first on this question, as I'll go ahead and bring the timer in for you guys. I'm going to wish you guys the best of luck on a great match. Alex, the timer will start for you when you're ready.
The Nightmare on Elm Street movies are creative scarefests, or at least they try to be, that are usually more about Freddy than it is the people that he's trying to go get. Those are a little bit more interchangeable, I would say. But Aaron, in his setup, is absolutely correct. It would be unfair to try to suss out who is the best performance singularly in the whole Nightmare on Elm Street. It's Robert Englund. However, we can argue about who the second best one is. That's as interesting, that's potentially more interesting conversation than who is the best, who is the second best. For my money, I say Mark Patton from Freddy's Revenge, who is asked a lot of and who gives a lot on screen, mentally, physically, as a performer. There is nothing else like it in the franchise. I think it is the closest to Robert Englund and what his performances are trying to capture in the series.
All right. Sorry, I froze out there for about 10 seconds, so I may have missed when you said it, but just to pull it up on screen for those at home, it is actor Mark Patton's portrayal of Jesse Walsh in the second film, Freddy's Revenge. So I definitely missed it by the end there. So with that said, Noah, we'll go over to you, sir. Your opening minute when ready.
Wow, give me 1 second. I forgot her first name for a minute. In my notes, I only have a.
Oh, Patricia Arquette.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't know if you meant the character or the actor. I was waiting for more clarification.
Okay. I mean, that's gonna spoil a little bit of it. But I'll just say it out now. Patricia Arquette was my choice for Best Actress, and don't let me forgetting her name take away from the performance that she gives. She gives an incredible performance, and she would have been recast in future movies, but it was because of her wanting to pursue other projects that allowed her to play what she considered to be meatier dramatic roles, not because she wasn't good in Dream Warriors. In fact, she was the best part of Dream Warriors, and the original girl from the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Heather Langenkamp, was rejoined her in this movie, and Patricia Arquette is not only acting circles around her, she's acting circles around the rest of her co-stars, and she matches Robert Englund's performance and the energy that he gives, and she channels it into her character as well.
All right, there we go. So it is Mark Patton versus Patricia Arquette. We're going to go ahead and go back over to you, Alex, for 2 minutes when ready.
Here's a question. Is it easier to fight someone if you're more similar to them? Or is it just easier to fight someone if you are radically different from them? Because that is kind of the heart of this particular debate as I see it. Patricia Arquette, Kristen, is on a complete moral axis, a completely different moral axis than Freddy Krueger. She is a completely different kind of person. She's a completely different kind of being. They do not have any similar interests except for the fact they both seem interested in her life. She doesn't like that. He's trying to kill her. That's bad. Mark Patton, however, as Jesse, has a whole other psychological drama going on. Mark Patton isn't playing a run and screamer like a lot of the other Nightmare on Elm Street protagonists, Kristen included. He's playing someone that just kind of hangs out to watch. He's way more interested in Freddy, and Freddy is way more interested in him, it seems, than any other protagonist in the entire series. Freddy is trying to emerge from Jesse. They have this connection. At times it is very, very physically evident as Freddy is trying to emerge from the chest cavity of Jesse. These two are connected. He is trying to physically emerge. More is asked of him. More is asked of Jesse Patton. Physically, acting through this claymation, acting through these prosthetics, acting through this makeup. More is asked of him mentally. There's an entire documentary about the making of Freddy's Revenge. And that is stuff that simply just isn't true for any of the other Nightmare on Elm Street movies, Dream Warriors included. Jesse just has a lot more going on as a character, and thus Mark Patton has a lot more to do as a performer. And that is why I think that Jesse always will trump Kristen.
All right, that will be time there. Noah, back over to you for the response. 2 minutes.
What you're saying is that he is being asked to do all these things, that he's being asked to do more, but he doesn't really deliver on what is being asked of him. That's really on the director. The director's asking him to do all these things. He might not necessarily deliver them. And if he's just hanging out and watching Freddy, then he's not really doing much except for just being an observer. The metamorphosis scene with Jesse and Freddy isn't really shocking because of his performance. It's really because of the special effects of the change, not Patton's performance at all. But Arquette is very balanced because Freddy's is a quippy, sadistic monster that we start to know through the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. But she's able to balance that. She's able to balance this kind of like zany and like witty performance from Robert Englund, who is sadistic and scary, but shows bravery. She shows that she's scared, but also willing to fight, and her determination to fight this monster, and her showcase of her ability to be able to lucid dream and bring in all these other people to actually fight this monster is really what sells it. She sells the dream sequences. We know that they're dreams, but her performance is able to make us feel like it is real and it has stakes for the rest of the characters. Lesser actors in the hospital scene where she's trying to be restrained would be completely hysterical and stereotypical, but Arquette really shows the trauma and the torment that she's going through, making us fully sympathize with her. Mark Patton, I'm going to get more of this in the 4 minutes, but Mark Patton, unfortunately, is discussed not because of his performance in this movie, but because of the undertones of the movie and the political era during the 80s. And I'll discuss more of that, why that makes more sense in 4 minutes.
All right. Speaking of, we'll go to that 4-minute section now. Of course, as always, I ask the competitors to give each other the chance to speak and make points. Even though this is a round where you're fighting for it, you'll find a pattern in there that works. With that said, though, the time starts when the first competitor speaks.
David Chaskins had intentionally written homosexual undertones into this film, your film, Freddy's Revenge, and homosexuality was very controversial and almost a taboo subject, especially in Hollywood during that time period. And this movie basically outed Patton as being gay years and decades before he came out. And he was told from now on, you will only be able to play gay characters. And this is just a really heavy toll for someone to have on their shoulders, especially during filming. And Patton gave a good performance, but it's clear that this affected him and not letting him reach his full potential. The fans of this second movie praise him as being like this first male scream queen, not really because of the performance, but just because of his legacy and the story behind the film, all the behind the.
Well, I would argue completely in the opposite direction. The title of the documentary is called Scream King, but that if you actually watch the character, if you actually watch the movie, he actually does not scream and run. He's not that kind of a character. He's not that kind of of an actor. The fact of the matter is that while it is true that the character was written with explicit homosexual undertones, that was then denied by the people that made the film for decades, I believe. And it was not until, years later that they even reversed and agreed once the kind of political situation had changed. I think the biggest problem with Kristen, more so, and this is kind of the rough spot that I have with her, is that Kristen gets the movie taken out from under her, and Nancy becomes the protagonist. Heather Langenkamp comes back and becomes the protagonist in the second half of the film. Nancy,
but that's not really because of the performance. It's because of the writing and the direction of the film.
No, Nancy is still the lead.
Does what is asked of her, and more so, she matches the energy that Englund is giving into this film because
all the other kids match the energy of the film. The fact of the matter is, Freddie is not as brutal with Kristen as he is with any of the other kids, as he is with Yaphet Kotto, as he is with the kid that gets the veins ripped out of him, as he is with
because
the kid that gets...
she's this more of a threat to him, so he can't be as blatant and outright towards
she's the more of a threat, so why not kill her first? I'm saying that Jesse is a more interesting look, the better character, the better performance. Nancy takes over from Kristen, who is honestly just giving a regular Jamie Lee Curtis style performance. Yes, a little bit more magical, but that is not just that, that is kind of par for the scene. Part for the series. Hysterical hospital scenes, there's like 4 or 5 over the course of the entire franchise. Here, New Nightmare, I believe there's one in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. That is par for the course for the series as well. Jesse, I would say, that is the entire focal point of Freddy's Revenge. He is the star. Nobody else comes in to steal the spotlight. He has a relationship with his Meryl Streep lookalike. He has a relationship with his best friend that may be slightly sexual. He has a relationship with his family. He has relationships with Freddy Krueger, and how all those relationships interact. That is the point of the movie, not as opposed to Dream Warriors, where Kristen just kind of disappears
all of
forever.
What you're saying good about your movie is really the writing and the directing. You're not really mentioning anything about Jesse's performance at all, about Mark Patton's performance.
No, Mark Patton's performance is good.
You're saying he doesn't run and scream.
He is asked more of than any other performer in the entire series besides Robert Englund.
But he doesn't give it.
He's actually asked to do the same thing that Robert Englund does, and just does it. To much less acclaim because of
the unfortunate thing is Mark Englund is in that same movie and does it better with the same thing.
You are blaming editing and directing problems on an acting performance.
And time. All right. We're going to go into the final minute of the round for each competitor. Alex, you're up first when ready.
So all of the things that we laud modern actors for, whether it be acting through prosthetics, acting through makeup, acting through these certain situations, these are all things that Mark Patton is doing. He's doing all the same things that Robert Englund is doing, which we have established to be the best performance, the best performer in all of this whole series. Mark Patton gets one shot and one shot only to do it. And I think he knocks it out of the park. He knocks it out of the park by having the most interesting character in relation to how they interact with Freddy. He is the most interesting character in how they react to the world around them. He is the most interesting character in how they react to the situation around him. In relation to Kristen, who reacts and then stops reacting, and then the movie kind of takes over away from her to the point where she disappears from it entirely. She is a magical plot point, and basically, whereas I believe Jesse is a fully formed, fleshed out character, which I don't believe the same can be said of Kristen.
And time. All right, Noah, over to you for the final minute of the round.
Everything bad that Alex is saying about my character and everything good he's saying about his character is about the way they're written and about the way that they're utilized in the movie. He has not really said much about either of their performances. Arquette's performance, she shows that she has acting chops, and she shows that in her very, very, very successful film and TV career, where she has some Oscar nominations and some Emmy nominations. And this is her film debut. This is where it started, and you can really see that. She sells the dream sequences, so we know that they have stakes. She sells the hospital scenes, but not being the stereotypical screaming person. You're saying that your character doesn't scream and run because that's not what is being asked of him in the film. You're saying that he's doing what Englund is doing, but Englund's already in the movie, so we're interested about what he's doing more. There's really no performance that Patton gives.
And time. All right. An intriguing fight, guys. A really interesting one there at the start. Obviously, a lot of dynamics to sort of break down there. So I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back, and we will turn it over to the people who have to break down those dynamics as they go ahead and make the decision. Not a lot to fact check there. These guys were they both talked about preparation for the match. Everything they said was pretty much head on. I guess the only thing to really make of note is, yes, if you've somehow lived under a rock and not figured it out yet, Freddy's Revenge does definitely have homosexual tones written into the film. It's one of the big reasons why a lot of people have gone back to it and reappraised it today, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of people credit a more negative reception necessarily at the time, simply because of the themes about the film. And seriously, if you've seen the movie and somehow didn't pick those undertones, go back again. You failed the assignment. Go back again and figure it out. With that said, Will, I'll go up to you first since you guys all look ready. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
This was a great round from start to finish, but I wound up ultimately going with Alex. It was kind of neck and neck right up until literally the last moment of the open debate, where Alex dropped a giant bomb that Noah just did not address or recover from, where he said that Noah was blaming bad editing and bad writing on a performance. And unfortunately, he's absolutely correct that Alex just had a lot about his performance, and I guess either Noah didn't address it or didn't hear it. But everything that Alex was picking up, laying down, I was picking up, and I think he just had the stronger argument overall.
All right, Carrie, we'll go down to you next. Who gets your vote? All right, you are still muted. There you go.
Sorry. I do that every time. I said Noah here, although, like Will said, I think it was really neck and neck, and it came down to the closings. I just thought Noah gave a little bit more about Patricia Arquette's actual performance. But like I said, this was really close for me. I think both our competitors had strong arguments and strong rebuttals to each other's arguments.
All right, so then Maria, will go to you for the tiebreaker. Who gets your vote?
Noah. Sorry, I hadn't written it out. I thought his arguments were better. I mean, Alex sort of touched on all the stuff that the or not Matt Damon, Mark Patton. Okay, it's a bad day. Had not what he had done personally, but more about tearing down the other movie and saying like she screams, he doesn't, blah blah blah. But I thought Noah first said the focusing on the writing and directing and not the acting is what Alex was doing, and I agreed with that. So I think he had the stronger argument, so I voted for Noah.
All right. Judges, thank you guys. We'll go ahead and move into question number 2 here. And it's actually, sometimes if you guys have ever watched a Battleground match, I really, really have to try and force a natural transition here. But that round is almost a natural transition into question number 2, because while to look at a performance, you are picking apart the different aspects of the film and figuring out what is in the performance and what is in the filmmaking. In this instance, we're literally going to be breaking it down because we're going to be talking about the Academy Awards here. And specifically, we're looking at films from the year 2017 or the award show in 2018, however you like to date certain things. A year that I feel like is sort of become forgotten even in recent memory, because you had the year before, you had the controversy with the Moonlight, La La Land, and in general, I think people had a lot more love for those films. And then the year after, you had the year of Green Book winning Best Picture, and I think that was more controversial, and specifically some of the nominations from that year were more controversial than the year before. And so you have this year with solid films in the middle of these two bigger years that just sort of goes under the radar. And so the question that I've given these guys is, which individual Oscar win from the year 2018 or films from 2017 do you disagree with the most? Because everybody has an opinion about the Oscars and the wins and the nominations and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, in terms of what was least deserving, when it comes to the win, it's the easiest thing to talk about because you know what the nominees are. You can literally compare it to the other nominees in that sense and pick out why it was the one you disagree with. So I think this will be an interesting debate. That said, Noah, you're up first on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the timer back, and it'll start for you when you're ready.
I went with that Guillermo del Toro should not have won for Best Director. And specifically, I am saying that Dunkirk should have won Best Director. Christopher Nolan should have won Best Director for Dunkirk. As a director, your job is to be pulling from every aspect of filmmaking to be able to show this film, to tell this story. It's going to be actor performances. It's going to be writing, even though the director is not always the one writing. It's going to be utilizing sound and scores and everything. They have to pull from every aspect of filmmaking into this one film and to make it cohesive. And Guillermo del Toro really only focuses on performances and the visuals, and doesn't really do too much else with the story. A story that we have seen numerous times, and doesn't add anything new.
Sorry about that. That's what happens when someone you actually have to respond to texts you. All right. So with that said, we're going to go over to Alex for his opening minute when you're ready.
Oh, the Academy. We joke about it a lot, and there's a lot of parody. There's a lot of hokey jokes, and there's a lot of stereotypes about how the winners are determined. Sometimes, though, sometimes they're real. Sometimes the stars align, and you get a pure moment of unbelievable LOL Oscars. An actor winning Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting, whatever, at a truly insane moment in time. And for this, we're going to do a little bit of an experiment because we all here are movie fans. I want you, the person listening to this, to try and remember who it is that won the Best Actor in the year 2018 for the movies released in 2017. You can't remember necessarily. You might have a hard time remembering if you didn't look it up recently. It was Gary Oldman. For all of the movies that Gary Oldman has ever been nominated for, 3, he has won for exactly 1. Darkest Hours. Is that even a movie that you remembered existed?
And time. All right. So we're going to go ahead and go back over to you, Noah. You have 2 minutes on the clock when ready.
Shape of Water falls into a pattern of contrived confrontations that culminate in an underwhelming union, and it probably just had inclusive goals in mind, but the execution is everything, and the execution wasn't there the entirety of the movie. But Dunkirk, it combines this time-fractured premise, hyper-authentic practical effects, unparalleled visceral action, performances that don't overpower the movie but do what they have to. Nolan, this is the best that Nolan can be, and he puts it into one heart-pounding masterpiece. Each of these characters is united under a single goal: survival. In the last 30 minutes, I'm going to talk about the last 30 minutes, even though it encapsulates the entire movie. This movie ascends to this pure operatic craft, and it left me thinking of something I read a long time ago about how pure cinema is the idea that movies are too indebted to the theater and novels and need to break free and tell stories on their own terms. And Dunkirk, for whatever faults you think you have with it, it comes closer to that status of being pure movie-going experience than just being about anything that I've seen this decade. And if that isn't the description of Best Picture, what is? In terms of Darkest Hour and his performance, in a verbal drama, as some critics call this, it's important that the actor is able to deliver the readings in a powerful way. And Oban not only does this and more what is expected of him, but he's able to transform into the character himself. And obviously that's helpful with the prosthetics, but his acting, his monologuing is why his performance is so good. And no one is saying that this movie is great or it deserved to be Best Picture or anything, even though it was nominated. But Gary Oldman's performance definitely should have won. I'll go over more about why none of the other performances shouldn't have won. But it's just a revelation to see Oldman give such an add nuance and dimension to the character in this verbal drama.
All right, that is time. Alex, back over to you. 2 minutes.
Timothy Chalamet, Daniel Kaluuya, Daniel Day-Lewis, Denzel Washington. What do they all have in common? They all spent Oscars night being LOL Oscars by the same guy. They got biopicked, they got great man theoried, they got British guide, they got big speech at the end, they got acting in a fat suited, all by the same guy. Gary Oldman is a fantastic performer. He's a very well-rounded performer. I love Gary Oldman. He's probably in a lot of your favorite movies as well. However, Gary Oldman should not be remembered for The Darkest Hours. It is a fine performance, but in a year that gave us Get Out, in a year that gave us Call Me By Your Name, in a year that gave us Phantom Thread, this is just simply not the best acting performance. It is not the best acting performance of the year, let alone of the acting performance that was nominated. Guillermo del Toro is a great director. Some would say he's a good director. I say he's a great director. He has things that he does very well, like most directors. Guillermo del Toro is an ambiance director. Guillermo del Toro takes stories that we know very well and puts his own special twist on them. He does this with Pan's Labyrinth. He's done this with more recently with Pinocchio. He is excellent at taking base art and making it high art. He also makes it really weird. That's just Guillermo del Toro things. The Shape of Water, in that aspect, in that sense, is actually a fine film. I don't love it. I don't necessarily even think it should have been Best Picture. But I know for a fact that Darkest Hours is not the best acting performance of the year of our Lord 2017. It is just far from it. It is a very standard acting performance. It's actually the kind of acting performance that people kind of joke about in Oscar season is going to win, is the front runner to win. And it is always the kind of performance people kind of groan and moan their heads about when it, in fact, it does win on the outside chance.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion here. The timer starts back up when the first competitor jumps in.
Shape of Water, and I understand that not everybody is a big fan of Guillermo del Toro. And honestly, I could say the same thing about Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan is not everybody's favorite director. For instance, I think that the best movie that he's made in the last 10 years happens to be Oppenheimer. I think Dunkirk is a little bit cold for me. Like a couple of
that's crazy because that's how what he was trying to show in the movie. Just how cold and isolated these characters are.
And I absolutely agree. And I wish it played better on the screen. I think that if anything, Dunkirk should have been his magnum opus. And yet I had to look up who the performances that were in it. I had to try and remember who did the sound for it. I had to try and remember who did the score for it. Dunkirk is a perfectly acceptable piece of film. Is it the best film of the year? No, I don't think so. But I don't necessarily think that Shape of Water is one of the worst. I think Shape of Water is exactly the movie that it is supposed to be. I think it is the movie that Guillermo del Toro intended it to be. It's obviously a very personal film to him.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the directing of it was the best nominated for that year. He prioritized performances and cinematography and wasn't able to.
Well, that's certainly the part that people care about the most when you go to the movies.
Alex.
Otherwise, just make a radio drama.
So he was able to. He's grabbing from every aspect of filmmaking to put that into his film. He prioritized those performances. The performances are good. The cinematography is good, but that doesn't make it the best storytelling, and it doesn't make it the best director award. Nolan is able to take everything from filmmaking and put it into this film, and it's pure cinema. He gives us this experience of pure cinema. We're able to watch the story unfolding. And in terms of everyone that was nominated for your award, Timothée Chalamet did a great job. But if you want to win the Oscar for lead actor, you have to have the lead role. And he shared it with Armie Hammer. Phantom Thread wasn't even Daniel Day-Lewis's strongest performance, and he didn't do a bad job. It just wasn't a compelling role. It didn't seem an interesting challenge. Daniel Kaluuya, he was great in it, but he was hampered by the script, and it just didn't have the depth that he needed for it.
Hang on.
And
it wasn't by the Get Out script is a factually ludicrous statement.
There wasn't enough depth for that character.
This idea that the Shape of Water only draws from a certain aspects, Guillermo del Toro's favorite aspects of cinema, is actually also factually incorrect. The Academy itself decided that it was good enough to be nominated in 13 separate categories. So it's not like this is just a visual, this is not a visual medium film. This is a film that draws from a lot of incredible aspects of filmmaking, aspects that the Academy decided were incredible. But they're
cliched and stuff that is done before. It's a Beauty and the Beast story. Nothing about the story is interesting or new.
Guillermo del Toro just remade Pinocchio, and they gave him an award for that. This is
so
what
you're saying
Guillermo
the Oscars are always right?
This is his style. No, I'm certainly not saying that. I'm saying that Guillermo del Toro does that. If Guillermo del Toro is going to make a film about this subject matter, this is how he wants the film to be. Whereas
maybe that's the film that he wanted to make. Maybe that is what the film he wanted to make.
But Darkest Hours doesn't play to any of Gary Oldman's strengths. Gary Oldman famously capitulates to his directors. Joe Wright had no idea what he wanted out of Gary Oldman because Gary Oldman is completely miscast in the role. He is forced to just sit there and bulldog lines out of one of the most intense and incredible actors of his generation. Gary Oldman is an intense guy, and he sat in a room for 90% of the film.
Oh, 3 seconds right now. I have more to say.
All right, and that is time. Listen, there's a lot to fit in 4 minutes there. No easy feat, guys. God, yeah. With that said, though, we have 1 minute left to get as much in as you can. Noah, you're back up first this time around. Go ahead when ready.
You're agreeing with me that he shouldn't even win for Best Director. Even though you didn't specifically state it, you agree with me saying that Shape of the Water wasn't even the best movie. It should have been nominated for Best Picture. Maybe that's the film you want to make, sure, but it's not. It doesn't mean that you should win Best Director. Christopher Nolan gives us an experience of pure cinema in this movie. He utilizes everything that filmmaking has to offer and puts it into this movie in a perfect way. The character of Winston Churchill, however, for Oldman, looked like a major passion project for Oldman, something that was clearly challenging and enjoyable for him. And it was arguably his best work yet. And while there are always great actors and actresses nominated each year, it's the just dedication to the craft and the ability to convey your passion to the audience that many times win the actor or actress their glory. None of the other performances for that year are challenging or anything for them. Gary Oldman definitely should have won for that. I'm not saying the movie is great. I'm just saying he should have won for it.
And time. Oh, wait, nope. Yep, time. Okay, there we go. All right. Alex, plus 3 seconds. The timer will be frozen, but you'll get those 60 seconds when you're ready. Go ahead.
Like I've said, in the year that Daniel Kaluuya, Denzel Washington, Daniel Day-Lewis, Timothy Chalamet all gave us these fantastic, outstanding performances, physically, verbally, emotionally, mentally. I think the idea that Gary Oldman winning Best Actor for essentially bulldogging his way through his lines in a suit is kind of ludicrous. I think he's outdone at every level. He's miscast. I think that Gary Oldman, while certainly a very capable actor and he does his best with the material, I think it is such a cliche, such a misunderstanding of the material, such an unfortunate kind of situation for him that, despite the fact that he is one of our finest working actors, we want to have him for much longer, as it turns out, that he will be remembered. This will be his only Oscar win. If you want to give him a legacy, that is fine. Pick a better performance, pick a better movie. The Shape of Water, for what it is perfectly acceptable. In fact, it is completely outside of the box for the Academy.
And time. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and put you in the back. We'll bring the judges on screen here for their decisions. Let's go ahead and bring them in. All right. Once again, not a lot to really fact check there. These guys have been pretty clean across the board in terms of the facts that they're bringing up. So we'll just give the judges a second there to get their name down on the board, as we'll go up to Carrie first as she's finished up there. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
You're muted.
Sorry, every single time. I'm sorry. I'll try to remember next time. This was tough again. I think Alex and Noah both were just back and forth. I ultimately went with Alex, and it was because it seemed like Noah's main point was that The Shape of Water didn't, really focus on the performances and the visuals and nothing else. And Alex had pointed out that the Academy actually nominated this movie in 13 other categories. And to me, Noah never really refuted that completely and showed me kind of why the Academy was wrong and why The Shape of Water kind of failed on all those other fronts.
All right, Maria, down to you.
I voted for Alex. Noah, I don't understand. I guess I didn't understand the assignment exactly, but I don't think he made his case. I didn't like much about Alex taking task to Gary Oldman, who I thought deserved that Oscar for that performance. However, I did agree with a lot of the facts that he stated, that about The Shape of Water and so forth. I think he did a better job this time, so yeah, Alex got my vote.
All right, judges, thank you, guys. Go ahead and jump into the next question here. And we're continuing a trend here. I didn't even really realize it. Sometimes you fuck up and you put a lot of a similar question in a match. But you know what? We're going to continue the trend here. These guys are living up to the task of having difficult questions to debate. So if I was going to do it to someone, let's give it to these guys. They're having a great job tonight. Cary Grant. It's always a great time when we get to jump into classic cinema in some sense or form. Usually it is by way of request of a strength, so hopefully with the tournament it'll allow for more of that to happen. But Cary Grant is an actor who is, I think to a lot of people nowadays, like the younger generation coming up, he's one of those names you hear when you talk about classic film, quote unquote. He's a name you hear in film school. He's a name you hear your favorite film critics say when they talk about classic actors. But not a lot of people are exposed to his work. And so when trying to think of a question that sort of broadens the horizon a bit, in looking at his films, and I was putting together the category within my strengths doc, I realized by design, by accident, a lot of Cary Grant's films are focused on him and a woman. He's a one-horse type of man. It's him and a woman. So let's angle it this way. The question is, with which of Cary Grant's female co-stars does he have the best chemistry with? Which is certainly, it's a different type of angle of a question, but no, seriously, go to his Wikipedia page and just hover your mouse over the different various articles and watch the posters pop up. It's incredible just how many posters are him and a woman, him and a woman, him and a woman. It makes it a question you have to kind of ask. So with that said, Alex, you are going to be going first on this one, as I'll go ahead and throw it to you. The timer starts when you begin speaking.
Cary Grant is the original Robert Downey Jr. He's taller, but he's tall, he's dark, he's dreamy, and he's got wit for days. One of the absolute best classical film. We've watched a lot of his movies for one of my shows, B52. So I can confidently say, out of like the 10 that I've seen, he was in a lot of rom-coms. He was in a lot of dramedies. He was in lots of movies where he makes eyes with and makes a lot of words with various incredible women throughout the history of film. This question is, in fact, an embarrassment of riches. But I believe in shooting for the top. So the answer, I believe, the only right answer to this question, I believe, is the person who I believe I have to legally call Katharine Hepburn, with a total of 4 performances together. Sylvia Scarlett, Bringing Up Baby, Holiday, and, of course, the well-known classic, The Philadelphia Story.
All right. And that is time. Noah, we'll head over to you for your pick when you're ready.
I'm going to read this quote by this actress and kind of sum it up. I appeared with many leading men, but working with Cary Grant was different from working with other actors. He was much more fun. I think we were a very successful team because we enjoyed working together tremendously, and that pleasure must have shown through onto the screen. I will always remember 2 compliments he made me. He said I had perfect timing in comedy, and that I was the sweetest smelling actress he had ever worked with. And that is the great Irene Dunne. They made 3 films together. And even in My Favorite Wife, that doesn't really quite measure up to Awful Truth, which is their best movie. The script is a bit weaker, but in truth, who cares? Because there's so much lively wit and witty backtalk and well-stylized speed for speed to match the 2 talents. And they just work well together in chemistry, and it's obvious that that's the answer.
And time. All right. Alex, back over to you. 2 minutes.
4 movies together, 2 certified classics, one that I would argue is very good, and exactly one other one. Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn made magic together. It was magic that was built up over time, starting small and ending large with survival hits, The Philadelphia Story, which we still talk about today. Holiday also has an amazing reputation. If you've never seen them, please check them out. If you take nothing else away from this, please watch those movies. These 2 had an energy. They were of a singular mind. They were cut from the same cloth. Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, absolute giants of classic film. Together, they were 2 big cats at play. They didn't care about the world around them. It was just those 2. The camera drifted to them. The camera loved them. They loved each other, obviously, on screen. They had this like closeness. If one moved, the other one moved. They were very drawn together in a way that is uncommon to see, and it is something that I think is lost on modern romantic comedies. You want to see them together. What are they going to say next? What are they going to do next? What wacky shenanigans are they going to do? And I think more so than anything else, these 2 exchange dynamics. They didn't mind if Katharine Hepburn was on top and Cary Grant was on bottom. They didn't mind if Cary Grant was on top and Katharine was kind of the weaker half of it. It didn't matter because together, the 2 of them could do whatever it is that they needed. Even drafting kind of weaker films, their weaker films, even those with the direction of like George Cukor. George Cukor found the energy. George Cukor found the magic, and they found what would otherwise be a fairly normal script and made it into a very watchable experience. These 2 together were like nothing else at the time, and really only comparable by some of the best Hollywood on-screen romances of all time. These 2 together were incomparable.
And time. All right. Noah, back over to you, sir. 2 minutes.
We're going to be saying a lot of the same things because even in their weaker movies, I think everyone can say that The Awful Truth is probably their best. But My Favorite Wife And I'm, for some reason, Penny Serenade, that's the other one that they're together in. Those do have weaker scripts, and they are weaker movies. Especially Penny Serenade. It's a little just off kilter, but it's the scenes between Dune and Grant Dunn. How I'm pronouncing it, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. That make My Favorite Wife and Penny Serenade just worth watching over and over again. She has this like wonderful giddy mocking laugh that matches perfectly with Grant's awkward and funny reactions. She has an electricity and allure that bewilders him and makes him particularly susceptible to her charms whenever he's in close proximity. He can't resist her magnetism, and we can't resist them together. They just play beautifully opposite each other, relaxed, respectful, playful irrelevance. I'm not sure that there's anything classic films agree with more than that the fact that Cary Grant was an unbelievable talent. He worked with the greats of the greats like Katharine Hepburn, and he could do it all in grand style and with total believability. But he somehow did it all better with Irene Dunn. Dune, however you say it, is quite something. Testament to her great talent and his greatest co-star. Yes, they are so good together, but they are so good by themselves. And because they're so good by themselves and they bring their own individuality to all their performances, when they come together, those sparks fly brighter than anything that Hepburn and Grant do together. And they're so chemically involved on screen, it's hard not to fall in love with them.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The time starts when the first competitor speaks.
Dune is as compelling in Penny Serenade as she is in everything else, and she brings the same level of openness as Grant. And once again, the scales are balanced. The rhythm is as different as it could have been from screwball comedy. The two find very similar moments of connection through small gestures, asides, glances, etc. Basically, she's every bit his equal in all of the movies that they're doing together, and they don't need to have these big romantic gestures. Again, it's the small things that really sell their chemistry and the believability of it.
God, you're so right. We're gonna be saying a lot of the same things because this is a real problem. Is that Cary Grant and Irene Dunn is a very good actress. Katharine Hepburn is of course one of the greatest actresses of all time. She's more well known than Irene Dunn is. I don't mean that as a point against Dunn. I just mean that more people don't know Irene Dunn. I would say that The Awful Truth is probably their best movie together. We watched that for 52. I would say that it is a good movie. I would just counter with the idea that 3, I believe, of the movies that Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant co-starred together in are in the Criterion Collection. I think a large part of that is that they were leads in those movies. Irene Dunn and Cary Grant had stellar chemistry together. They did. But Katharine Hepburn is just on another level. Cary Grant is the level. And I think that while Irene and Cary Grant had kind of even energies, and that's always really great to see on screen, I think Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant had uneven energies, and they played with that energy. One was,
and sometimes it didn't work, and sometimes it didn't work because one overpowered the other.
One time it didn't work. One time it didn't work, and I think you could argue that the same is true for Irene and Cary. They had to find it, and that's okay.
But they found it through all three.
Somebody knew, somebody saw it and go, "There's something here. I believe there's something here." And yes, I agree. One of my movies doesn't work as well as the other ones do. But you said that one of yours didn't work as well as the other two.
But that's only because of the script writing and directing and story and everything like that. It has nothing. It has exactly. It has nothing to do with their performances. But what you're saying is that sometimes they play with those differences in.
Absolutely, and I think that is the difference. That is the thing that I have on you in this particular argument is that they took those risks. They didn't just say, "All right, Cary Grant."
Unfortunately, sometimes they didn't work, and sometimes that chemistry didn't come through. And having free for
would you
free
rather
when it
see
came
the
to
same
chemistry,
movie 3 times? Would you rather see 4
I'm
completely different
not
movies?
saying that they're the same movies.
No, I'm not saying this, but
that
it is
chemistry
just a
works
question. It is
in all
just
three
a
movies.
question
The
for you. Would
chemistry
you
doesn't
rather
work in all
see
4.
the same 4 Katherine Heigl movies, or would you rather see 4 different movies?
I'm just saying, you didn't listen to my
4
argument that I
different styles of
just
performance?
said.
If I just needed to see one movie, I would just see one movie. I'm saying
You
that Cary
ignored
Grant and
everything I
Katharine
just
Hepburn
said.
are a more entertaining duo because they have more potential to find performances in each other than
Potential
Irene
doesn't
and Cary
translate
Grant.
to chemistry. I think
No,
everyone
chemistry
when it
translates
came
to
to
chemistry, and that's what we
romantic
have on
comedies,
film.
and you're saying one of yours doesn't hit when it comes to chemistry.
You
and
said one
the
of
exact
yours
same
doesn't
thing.
hit.
When I said that when it specifically came to the screenwriting or to the directing to the way the story is, but their chemistry in all three of those in the movies
Their
makes
chemistry
those
is
movies very
fine, but
watchable.
if I can be perfectly honest, no one remembers those movies. At least
It's not
fewer
because
people.
of the chemistry.
Fewer people. Are you kidding? Chemistry is the one thing that those movies have.
And
If
that's
those
what
movies
makes
played
people
better
love
to
going to see
people,
them.
they would have still be remembered today. That's what we get.
All
out of
the things that
classic
you're
films.
saying, you're falling in the same trap that you did the first one. You're mentioning everything other than the actual chemistry itself.
No, I'm talking about the
you
chemistry
said
between
nothing about it.
Catherine and Cary. It's
No,
just
you're
you
saying
don't
no one
believe the
remembers
argument.
them. Like no one is talking about the movie. I'm saying it's because of the screenwriting and the directing. It's not because of the chemistry.
And time. All right, you guys have 1 minute left to close out the round. Alex, you are up first, so the timer will start for your final minute when you begin.
I will concede that one of my films, their very first film, I believe, does not play as well as their remaining three, which I believe are two certifiable classics and one film that is certainly very much worth your time. I will also like to remind you that you likely had never heard of the three films that Irene Dunne and Cary Grant had ever made. It's the reason we don't talk about those movies because they're not as good as the movies that Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn ever made. Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn just had a different kind of energy. They had a special kind of energy. They had the chemistry to make average scripts great and incredible scripts amazing, unmissable. And that is something that Cary Grant and Irene Dunne tried to recreate, but couldn't necessarily do it on a consistent level. Couldn't do it and create the same kind of hits that Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant could in their prime.
And time. All right, Noah, over to you for the final minute of the round.
When it comes to the film, the story, the screenwriting, the plot, whatever, yes, not all of my three movies hit. And in the case, Penny Serenade is probably the worst movie. But when it comes to chemistry, that's what elevates that movie. The chemistry between Irene Dunne, Dune, and Cary Grant is what elevates that film. Cary Grant gives an Oscar-worthy performance in that film with voice cracking, heavy with emotion, and everything like that. They always give great performances. I'm not saying that the movies are bad because of the lack of chemistry. You mentioned yourself, one of your films does not work as well as the others when it came to chemistry. Dunne and Cary Grant are electric every time they're on screen together. There's not a moment where we aren't. And in fact, most people prefer Hepburn opposite Spencer Tracy than with Cary Grant at all. And people love Irene Dunne and Cary Grant together even more.
All right, that is time on the round there. We'll go ahead and wrong one. We'll go ahead and sit you guys in the back as we'll bring the judges in as they are wrapping up their decisions here. In terms of fact checking, again, these guys have been pretty much on it for most of this match. The only thing that I can really fact check is her name is pronounced Irene Dunne, just because it was flipped back and forth multiple times. Her name is pronounced Irene Dunne. The reason that you can certify that is because on her actual birth certificate, her last name is spelled D-U-N-N. That is her original last name. Why there was an E added to it when she entered Hollywood, hell if I'll ever know, because that's just a rabbit hole I'd rather not go down. But it is pronounced Dunne. With that said, though, Maria, we'll go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Well, that was a big problem there. Saying I'm like, it's Irene Dunne, George Cukor. Not I don't know where to get these pronunciations. Anyway, my vote went to Noah. In spite of some of the things that he, Alex had him on the ropes, and he kind of faltered a little bit. But I didn't agree with what Alex's take on Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant. They had zero chemistry, in my opinion. She's very tight. She's very straight-laced. She's also involved with Spencer Tracy. I didn't feel that at all ever in a movie with the two of them, but I did feel it with well, actually, Sophia Loren, I think he had the best chemistry with. But anyway, I didn't think Alex presented his argument very well, and I didn't agree with it. But I do agree with Irene Dunn. So, Noah.
Okay. Will, down to you.
So something that the competitors were even saying over and over again is that a lot of their arguments were the same, and so I had to go like run through my head like every single minutia, every single like teeny side argument that I could pull. And when I did that, unfortunately, I came up with Alex. Sorry, Noah. I don't hate you. You know I don't hate you. But here's the reason why I went with Alex. Alex, man, Alex kind of shot down a lot of the arguments for Noah, and Noah also kept on saying that Alex said, "Oh well, he admits that one of his films didn't work." Well, at the beginning of his 1 minute closing, he said two of his films didn't work. So if you're going to if you're going to use it, if you're going to use one thing to shoot your opponent down, don't use it against yourself.
All right, so we've had one judge stress pronunciation of a name, then vote for the competitor anyways. Will described his vote as unfortunately. Harry, what is your diss and who is your vote going to?
So I'm going for Alex. I actually agree. I think almost 100% with what Will said. This was difficult because a lot of the arguments were the same. And again, like Will said, I had to go off of just those small arguments that were a little bit different. And it came down to closing for me. And I think Alex just made a really good point about how, we talk more about these Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant films than we do about the Cary Grant and Irene Dunn films. And I think Alex just made a little bit more effective use of his time overall.
All right. Well, judges, thank you once again. We're going to go ahead and jump here into question number 4 of this matchup. And honestly, when it came to the answers, like, because I write the questions, so there's a part of me that's like, oh, I want to see all of these debated because I wrote the questions and I'm going to be here most likely watching you debate them. But it's the answers that always intrigue me, and this fourth question is one of those battles where if you ask this question and you ask somebody to name the first 2 answers, there's a good chance these are the first 2 answers that come to your mind, and so it is a sort of a debate of iconic status in that sense. Fantasy films, especially in the modern era, I feel like are more and more becoming something that people are falling in love with. Again, it seems like there's this ebb and flow throughout history. There's a period of years where people really love fantasy, and then it kind of falls out of favor again, and now we're seeing it sort of fall back into favor. I mean, if there's any semblance of that, 20 years ago, a Dungeons and Dragons film got made, and it was fucking atrocious, and it bombed the way that it should have, and now 23 years later, another Dungeons and Dragons films exist. And not only was it a relative success given its expensive budget, but it was a well-made film. And that's the difference in time, as you see the appreciation of this genre sort of move in and out and how people approach it. But arguably the most important thing about a fantasy is the world it's set in. And so the question is, which fantasy world is the most unique? Because there's a lot of elements that can transpire between the various fantasy worlds. I mean, how many different fantasy films have we seen that have trolls or goblins or witches or wizards or any other form of those different things? But it's what makes that world stand out is the debate here. Noah, you are up first for this one, so I'll go ahead and give you guys the timer, and it'll start when you begin.
Not to mention, well, Aaron mentioned pretty much some of what I was going to say. A lot of these fantasy worlds have the same thing. They're going to have witches. They're going to have wizards. They're going to have these all-powerful evil beings or all-powerful good beings. They're going to have orcs, goblins, trolls, ogres, giant spiders, anything like that. But for my choice, I chose the obvious one, but I had to wait before choosing it because I thought it was a little too obvious. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, there's a reason why this is the obvious answer. It was a really contrived way of saying that my choice is Middle-earth. Tolkien created this vast world with a very long history that goes incredibly deep. And I know the films don't go that deep, but they make references to the lore, and they have these really interesting characters that come into the world.
And time. All right, Alex, over to you when ready.
So, as a longtime lover of fantasy, I love to get away from the sort of unfortunacies of modern life, and I think a lot of people do too. I think I'm very much not alone in that. Uh, and fantasy is one of the great genres that is, like Aaron said, we're going to say that a lot today. Like Aaron said, it is being rediscovered, and for good reason, because the modern world sucks. The current world sucks. Let's get away. Um, and there is, believe it or not, a world where a fantasy world where characters go to get away. And it is actually interesting in the fact that the world reflects the individual characters, the different characters that decide to go there. I am, of course, talking about going off to see a wizard uh, in the wonderful land of Oz.
All right, and that will be time. It is the world of Middle Earth versus the world of Oz. C.S. Lewis is turning in his grave because Narnia was not selected, and Netflix is going to be adapting his book soon. But with that said, Noah, you are up next when ready.
A lot of these fantasy worlds are going to have the same elements and the same creatures and beings and everything. But why Middle Earth stands out as being unique is because it creates different backstories and it creates different origins. It creates different aspects of these creatures. And back when Tolkien wrote it, this was the beginning of fantasy. People started using him as a blueprint of how to create fantasy worlds. And there's a reason for it. The fact that he creates all this lore for elves. They come from the Undying Lands, a name that I can't remember the specific name for it right now. The fact that he says that orcs came from were elves. They were elves who translated to this darker kind of side of power and magic. We don't even see Morgoth in the Lord of the Rings films, which is the biggest and worst villain in all of Lord of the Rings history. We hardly see the Balrog, which has this immense story behind him, and we only see him for like 5 seconds before he brings Gandalf down this huge chasm with him. Tolkien was able to create this world that seems so small in terms of size, but he's able to fit so much fantasy elements in that world and to play off of those elements, those characters, and build this incredible lore that people have degrees in. There's so much backstory for this. The Silmarillion, Beren and Luthien. There's books that are written thousands and thousands of years before Lord of the Rings setting because there is so much, and he makes this feel like it's an entire world of itself. In fact, where Oz just feels like this flat one-note land, really.
And time. All right, Alex, over to you.
So the question at hand is, which fantasy world is the most unique? I chose Oz because I liked the way the question was phrased. Which fantasy world is the most unique? Well, Oz is unique to whatever character happens to land in Oz. Oz has residents that live in it. If you go there, you will likely find a lion or perhaps a scarecrow. But if you watch any of the dozens of Oz adaptations, of which I have only seen a few in preparation for this match, I found that actually Oz was very different every single time you went there. Whether you go there with Judy Garland, whether you go there with James Franco, whether you go there with Tip, every single one of the incarnations of Oz that are on screen on film, which is a movie debate, the background information of Lord of the Rings should not factor in here at all. Oz is different for each one of those characters. You will never travel to the same Oz because the same person doesn't daydream it twice. Even if a person were to return to Oz, they do not return to Oz in the same daydreamy state as they were when they entered. They come in with a completely new perspective. They face new challenges. They undergo different tests, and the landscape, the look, the feel, their perspective has changed, and it all reflects in their surroundings. Oz is not a set place. It is much more fey than that. Oz is a daydream. It is how it is originally intended. Oz is the land of daydreams. The best depiction of one in film, in my opinion. That is what makes Oz the most unique. Whereas Middle Earth, if anything, is a contemporary piece of fiction. There are many others like it, actually.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. Timer starts back up when the first competitor speaks.
You're saying that there's so much more that is the same as Lord of the Rings or the Middle Earth, and that there's so much like it. That's because it created the blueprint for fantasy. It was written back in 1937 and 1949 during that time period. So it was one of the first great fantasy epics ever told and ever written. And there's a reason why a lot of the fantasy worlds now take a piece out of it, is because it is so influential. You're saying that Oz changes. You're saying Oz changes for each individual that visits it. You're not saying what changes about it. You're just saying, it's unique that the land changes and that's it. And there's trees that throw apples, and there's little munchkins that aren't dwarves at all.
To be clear, first of all, Middle Earth is a post-Wizard of Oz fiction. It did not invent elves. It did not invent orcs. It did not invent a lot of these tropes.
And I'm not saying this.
No, absolutely not. But it also was a contemporary piece of work. There was work being done very similar to it. Namely, for example, and famously, the Chronicles of Narnia was written at around the same time by a friend of J.R.R. Tolkien. So it is very much a contemporary piece of work. In fact, I think one of your main points goes against you. Middle Earth, for all the things that I love about Middle Earth, and this is very difficult for me to say about Middle Earth, it is incredibly influential. However, that means that it is not unique. We have
it is unique because it was the first thing.
Being first does not make you unique. If I can copy the Coca-Cola formula, if I can copy the Coca-Cola formula, it is not unique anymore. And for all the things that we do, we never try to make Oz the same thing over and over and over again.
You're saying this general thing. You're saying this one thing that's different about Oz that makes it unique, and that's the only thing.
Yes, the thing about Oz is that it is different every time. That is certainly what makes it unique.
The thing about Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, is there's so much. Every historical place that they visit in Lord of the Rings, every city, every lineage of king, everything has this immense backstory and lore that's referred to in the Lord of the Rings. So I'm not cheating and using the Silmarillion or Baron Luthien
no.
as examples.
Just
but I'm
even
saying
using
all these references and all of everything that is in Lord of the Rings has this immense lore and backstory. He's able to create this world that feels like it has thousands upon thousands of years of actual history, where the only thing that you're saying about Oz is, it changes.
No. First of all, Middle Earth is great, and I love Middle Earth.
Real quick caveat. Chronicles of Narnia was made in 1950, so after Lord of the Rings, by the way.
And the Lord of the Rings was made after The Hobbit, which was made after The Wizard of Oz. I'm saying that these are not and there was fiction, there was fantasy before Lord of the Rings. It didn't invent any of those concepts. It didn't invent the concept of dwarves. These were all things that we had that Tolkien just put together in a masterwork, which is what I think that Middle Earth is. However, it is not unique. It does not stand alone. And lore does not make a world. The world of Middle Earth would be interesting. The world of Middle Earth would be interesting. Didn't have the lore.
The fact that orcs come from elves that have fallen from grace, it's like a fallen angel, is unique. The fact that Gandalf is one of the Arnor, I think that's right. The fact that
all of which is
the Balrog is unique. The Witch King of Angmar is unique.
A
All these
giant
places
fire
are
demon is
unique.
not unique.
Gollum
And we have quantified
being
it, and
unique.
we have made lots of things like the Balrog sense. The fact of the matter is, Oz is the only
This
one
was the
of
first to
these
do
two
it, which
movies.
makes it unique.
It
The
is
fact
not.
that
It
it's
does not.
replicated
Being
doesn't
first to
doesn't
table
make
does not make
it's
you
not
best,
its
or
fault for
does not
being
make you
unique.
unique. That is not how that works. First does not make you
You're
best.
saying one thing
First
that
does
makes
not
your
make you
movie
original.
unique.
First does
You're
not
saying the
make
one
you.
thing.
And time. All right, we have 1 minute left for each competitor on the round. Noah, you're up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
You're saying the only thing that makes the Land of Oz unique is the fact that it changes for whoever visits. That's because you're not mentioning anything else about the world and the land itself, because there is nothing else to mention, because it was done and there's nothing interesting about it. Oh, there's these dwarf people who are totally not dwarves or hobbits. And by the way, it was written during 1937 and 1949. Wizard of Oz or The Wizard of Oz came out in 1939, so about the same time. Chronicles of Narnia came after Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was the first to do it, making it unique. It took all of these elements that you're familiar with, orcs, goblins, and created something new out of it. The fact that he's able to create this entire backstory and thousands of years worth of history, the fact that he implements new beasts and demons and everything, the necromancer, the fact that he's able to influence all this, makes it unique itself.
And time. All right, Alex, over to you for the final minute of the round when ready.
So Middle Earth is not shouldn't get credit for being allegedly first to the table. Middle Earth is a great masterwork, of course, but it has been ripped off to death as successfully as pretty much anybody else is going to rip off any kind of media. Oz, however, kind of stands by itself, though it has many adaptations based on the I think 1900 age book. Every single one of its interpretations, even interpretations that are telling the exact same story, tell it slightly differently. The visuals are never the same. The story is never exactly the same. It is the only one that changes based on who is the main character, whether that be Return to Oz, The Wiz, Oz the Great and Powerful, any of the number of dozens. It is the only one whose perspective changes, as opposed to being a static place where we set the exact same story twice.
And time. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and sit you in the back and we'll bring the judges in here. So in terms of while the judges are finishing up their thoughts, the big thing I dove into here, because it was discussed multiple times, is essentially the order of what everything comes in. Where does the genesis of fantasy come from? Because it was discussed multiple times. So using The Wizard of Oz, The Chronicles of Narnia, which obviously was mentioned but was not an answer, and then Lord of the Rings as like the three big bases of where this all comes from. So at least what I could find, so modern fantasy is obviously inspired by previous works that existed before the genre of fantasy existed. The big one that I saw that kept coming up is the collection of stories, 1001 Nights, also known as Arabian Nights. You've probably heard this mostly through probably its most famous adaptation of a singular story from within it, known as Aladdin. But there's a collection of works that are said to have inspired fantasy. Modern fantasy is believed to have been created to some extent by author George MacDonald, specifically one of his books, The Princess and the Goblin. Princesses, Goblins, two very big parts of fantasy, was released in 1872. That's where a lot of people would point to as one of the first proper fantasy works. In terms of the chronological order of everything mentioned in the match, the book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, was first released in 1900. The Hobbit was released in 1937, the first book in the series from J.R.R. Tolkien. The Wizard of Oz, the film, came in 1939. The Chronicles of Narnia were written between 1950 and 1956. The Lord of the Rings books were published between 1954 and 1955. So technically, the The Chronicles of Narnia was published first after The Hobbit, but before The Lord of the Rings specifically, although it did not conclude its run until after all three Lord of the Rings had been published. And then, of course, modern film adaptations of those came later, as did a lot of the other adaptations that were referenced by Alex as we move more into film being a more popular medium for people to produce these things in instead of books. So with that said, Will, I'll go up to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
So again, the passion here really made this very difficult. But the person who I feel embodied the question a little bit more was Alex. When you have a question which is what is the most unique, and you immediately say that other people have copied your world, kind of like what Alex said, being the first or being the best does not mean that your world is unique. And unfortunately, it does lose uniqueness after a time. Whereas Alex, while he didn't completely describe what made, everything that made Oz unique, he still managed to indicate why it was unique in some form or another that I just don't feel was combated as well.
Okay. So the first vote goes to Alex there. Carrie, I'll go down to you for your vote.
Okay. I said Noah here. Again, like Will said, this was very passionate, and I think both competitors made fantastic arguments. For me, the argument about whether something is because something is first is unique, that to me, that those arguments kind of wound up canceling each other out almost, because I think you could take it either way. Something that's, like Noah said, something that's the first is unique, or like Alex said, something that's copied off of a lot isn't unique anymore. So I went kind of based on some of the other arguments, but keeping those in mind. And for me, Noah just gave a little bit more about what else makes his world unique, what else makes Middle Earth unique. Alex said a lot about, the uniqueness of the world to each person that goes in. I think Noah kind of challenged him to point out, what else makes the worlds unique. And to me, Alex didn't really name as many things, in addition to, that one element.
Okay. All right, which means we'll go to Maria for the tiebreaker here. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Noah won my vote. I didn't particularly like Alex talking over him all the time. I was trying to hear what he was saying. But I know that happens. I do this too. The Wizard of Oz to me is a flat universe, but Middle Earth seems alive. There's a lot of things, and as he pointed out, orcs come from, not orcs. Yeah, maybe it is. Comes from elves and that have turned due to not doing the right thing or whatever. I think he's right I'm sure when this was presented, it was unique. And that is copied all the time now doesn't take its uniqueness away. I mean, it's very fleshed out. I mean, there's even languages and so forth. So I just thought that he had a better argument for Middle Earth, and I thought, I always thought of it as a one-time deal. If it was so great, why isn't anybody copying it? So that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
All right. Thank you, guys. Go ahead and sit you in the back because we're not quite done yet. These competitors have done a great job tonight. But that does unfortunately mean they have to keep going as we are going to be going into the blind round. Now, how does that work in case you needed a reminder? So the blind round is a question that has no relevance to anything that we have discussed tonight. It is a completely randomly assigned different question that they have no indication of what they are about to receive. They will be given a generalization of a prompt. So my classic example has always been name me a Will Smith movie that was pre-slap, but name me a Will Smith movie. And then from there, you will be given the question. Whether or not you think that your answer 100% works with the question, you will have to do your best to debate said answer. In terms of that, the round will work exactly the same. You guys will be given a couple of minutes to put your prep together. But with that said, are we ready to go?
I hate it here.
It's okay. It's okay.
We get more of this? Oh, yay.
Hey, don't sound too excited now, okay?
All right,
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. The question is, or the prompt, I should say, is when it wants to unfreeze and let me actually put it on the screen. There it is. There we go. Yes? Yes. Name me a Leonardo DiCaprio film released in the 2010s. And yes, you can look up the films if you need to get your full bearing of options.
Just name one.
Yep.
God, I hate you.
Yeah.
No, Aaron, not
Love you
you,
too, guys.
Aaron. Can I mention the Little Dicky Earth music video?
That is not a major motion picture, but I appreciate you bringing new art to the table, if we can
It's
call it that.
the best moment of that year. And I'm Kanye West. Oh Jesus.
If I can take Kevin Hart for all future Kanye West public appearances, I think things would be a lot safer. Music could probably get worse, but
The 2010s. That was actually a weird decade for Leo.
Will is violently shaking his head in agreement in the back.
Just shaking his head?
In agreement.
Oh, in agreement? Yeah, that was a weird year. That was a weird decade for the man. Oh, Jesus.
Shutter Island. I'll do it. I'll pull the trigger.
Okay.
Shutter Island.
J. Edgar.
And
You're
J.
a
Edgar.
bitch.
Okay. Will would like me to communicate the fact that Leo, I think that said fucked a bear. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he fucked the bear, Will. I think he just sat inside it like a Joey in a pouch, and then ate some of it. Okay, maybe legally he did fuck it. I don't know. But with that said, Shutter Island versus J. Edgar. The question is, what is the best Leonardo DiCaprio film released in the 2010s? So these guys are going to have a couple minutes on the side to put their arguments together, all the positivity they can bring, and we will be back in just a few seconds for you watching at home with the blind round. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the few seconds of elevator music. As always, we're here for the blind round. Of course, the prompt was to name a DiCaprio film from the 2010s. The question is, what is the best Leonardo DiCaprio film released in the 2010s between Shutter Island and J. Edgar? We're going to go ahead and just jump right back into it. These guys have had their time to put an argument together. Noah, you are up first because you answered first. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the timer over to you. This has been an excellent tournament so far. I said last match was really great. This match, I feel like, even stepped it up to another level, especially with some of the more complex arguments. You guys have done a great job tonight. So here, let's end on a basic note. You guys have to argue best film for two films that most people wouldn't pick. Let's just put it out there. Have fun with it. May the best man win. Enjoy.
Martin Scorsese is known for his amazing filmography, and obviously maybe the rare occasional miss. But he's got movies like Taxi Driver, The Age of Innocence, The Departed, Goodfellas, Raging Bull, Silence, which is very underappreciated, Gangs of New York, Cape Fear, Casino, Shutter Island, which is my choice as the best Leonardo DiCaprio for the 2010s. The Irishman, After Hours, Mean Streets. He's just got so many films. Hugo in his filmography. and Shutter Island happens to be on the upper half of his filmography. This movie is fantastic. It's got a very interesting mystery behind it, and it keeps you enthralled for the entire runtime. And the twist at the end is one that no one ever forgets.
And time. All right, Alex, over to you when ready.
Leonardo DiCaprio loves opposite day. He spent the 2010s trying on different outlandish characters with a suspicious amount of success. I don't believe that all of it was warranted. The performances were mostly good, but we didn't know the questions ahead of time, so I picked J. Edgar. J. Edgar is the most personal of the movies that I would argue that he made in this decade. In this decade, it was pretty much the start. J. Edgar was the start of the 2010s Oscar Leo of the Oscars Leo rush that he had. J. Edgar is the most personal of those movies. I think J. Edgar is the start, or rather, the return to form of awards contender Leonardo DiCaprio, and that is the Leonardo DiCaprio that we most often find ourselves in now. Is J. Edgar.
And time. All right. Noah, back over to you, sir. You have 2 minutes on the clock when ready.
Shutter Island continues to live in the limelight because of TikTok and Instagram movie pages that kind of promote this movie because of its insane twist at the end and because of the performances and just the screenwriting of this film. But unfortunately, not even Clint Eastwood or Leonardo DiCaprio powerful portrayals enough to prevent this colossal failure of a film in J. Edgar. It's got underwhelming performances, a lackluster script, and a pervading sense of drudgery prohibits J. Edgar from ever being truly engaging. In a filmography from Clint Eastwood that struggles with having outstanding movies, with his best movie being Unforgiven and everything else being kind of meh. It's J. Edgar is easily the worst of those films. J. Edgar has a 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb, while Shutter Island has an 8.2. Rotten Tomatoes says J. Edgar is at a 43 and 44 in terms of critic and community census, and Shutter Island being 69-77. Unfortunately, the script for J. Edgar feels more like a stage play than a movie script. It's very a fractured narrative. It's overly talky. The script trawls through major events. The film crawls on. You're not interested in any of these characters. The supporting cast, like Naomi Watts and Judi Dench, are misused and miscast. But the mystery of Shutter Island is so compelling, and that's what makes the twist at the end such a great twist. The narrative somewhat lacks a little bit of power, but Scorsese's lowest gear is still incredibly powerful and has a bigger reach than the maximum power of many other filmmakers, including Clint Eastwood. Scorsese delves into the psychological thriller while also brilliantly injecting elements of horror and even classic noir. It fits great with the cool period setting and the overall captivating premise, and this is easily Mark Ruffalo's best performance.
And time. All right, Alex, back over to you.
Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the world's most famous men. We all know that. Someone who we think we all know a lot about in his personal life. And while all that is true, his on-screen characters in the 2010s tended to flow toward being outrageous caricatures, so wildly different from himself that he had to be a masterful actor to distract from the fact that is Mr. Cobb, an internationally wanted criminal, and not Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the most famous and photographed men on the planet. In J. Edgar, he gets to lose this thing that he right off, which is his insane star power, and play a person that is as famous in the time period as he is, again, being J. Edgar. And that buys him so much more leeway as an actor, shedding this thing that he's been fighting for his entire career. Shutter Island, for all of the wonderful things about it, it's a ripoff. It is a ripoff of two different movies. One of them is The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and the other one is the ninth configuration, it is a very predictable twist. And I'm sure TikTok does love Shutter Island. I'm sure TikTok loves Leonardo DiCaprio. If TikTok had taste, the world would be a much better place. J. Edgar is just a far more compelling drama. It is a far more solid narrative. It is disjointed in the style of movies that we were making in 2010s, meaning it is nonlinear. But that is very much on purpose. That is very much the style that J. Edgar should be told in. Seeing the cover up before the crimes, and then the crimes after the justification is given. That is very much the world as J. Edgar saw it, in which his secrets could not be spilled because his secrets were not only damning to himself, potentially damning to the country as well. I think this all leads to a giant juggling act that makes a fantastic film.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer starts and the first competitor speaks.
I don't think it's a ripoff of any of those movies. I think it pays an homage to them and uses elements of those movies to create something of Martin Scorsese's imagination.
Well, Martin Scorsese, absolutely, I think most people would agree that this is lesser Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio.
But because it's lesser Martin Scorsese, it's still amazing work by Martin Scorsese.
No, I think it's fine. I think it's perfectly acceptable. It is a complete ripoff. It is the exact same twist as The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Excuse me.
We're not talking about that movie then.
Oh, absolutely not. We're talking about the movie that ripped
movies.
it off. We're talking about the movie that is actually a ripoff. That ripped it off is Shutter Island. J. Edgar, you said it was more of a play than it is a film. I think we adapt films to play. Excuse me then. I think that no, I believe you made a point that said that it flows not as well as a narrative.
You could have. I just have a horrible memory, but
okay. No, I think J. Edgar is the far more compelling narrative.
I don't think so, because it's got a really long runtime and nothing about it is encapsulating, including Leo's performance. But Leo's performance in Shutter Island is absolutely astounding. And like the scenes where he's breaking down, sobbing, contrasted with him being like this grim kind of detective, are just so opposite. But they work so well together, and they layer this character in a brilliant way.
Well, they layer it in a way that the movie eventually becomes more about Mark Ruffalo and less about Leonardo DiCaprio. I think
it's a beautiful twist. It's a beautiful twist.
It's a predictable twist that other movies have done as well, if not better. Mark Ruffalo, I think, is the standout performer of the movie. I don't think.
But is J. Edgar better?
I think it is. I think that Leonardo DiCaprio was nominated for a Screen Actors Guild Award for J. Edgar.
Oh, a Screen Actors Guild Award. That's crazy. It's such a prestigious award.
It's as much as it is the preeminent predictor for the Oscars. So it is as prestigious as an award as I can give it. It is certainly not the the Tennessee Critics' Choice Award.
I'll tell you why J. Edgar is so bad is because by the end, why the script is so bad is because by the end of it, we don't understand Hoover any more than we did when the film began. And as an audience member, we're like forcing to scramble to work out where we are in time every 5 or 10 minutes. It's very the word is not coming to my brain right now. It's very not. It doesn't work well. The cogs aren't in place for this movie. It's disjointed. That's what I was trying to say.
Don't completely agree with that. I think the movie is told non-linearly, which I think maybe you think muddies the waters because the explanation is given before the crime, and it is not given in the usual order. But
some films are able to play with time like that, like Memento or other movies like that, but are still able to be understood and work as a narrative. But this movie just doesn't work.
Well, I believe it does, and I think it does because at the end of the movie, J. Edgar, his crimes as you see them are perfectly laid out for you to bear, and his motivation for those crimes, meaning his the security of the country, his personal relationship with Armie Hammer, these are all factors that led into factors like the Red Scare. These are all factors that go into making this a compelling movie. This movie throws a lot of balls up into the air and tends to catch them, whereas Shutter Island has a twist going for it and almost nothing else.
You say intends to catch them, but all those
No, I
balls
think it
end up on the
successfully
floor.
catches them.
It doesn't. You say
I
intended
said it
to
throws
because
them
you
up in the air
agree
and
that
then
they don't.
catches them.
You agree they don't.
Whereas Shutter Island only has one and it barely catches it.
And time. All right, we got 1 minute left on the round for each competitor. Noah, you are up first, so when you are ready, you can begin your final minute.
Shutter Island may borrow from other movies, but it has its own aspects that make this movie so great. The mystery part of it and keeps you very intrigued and very on your toes and trying to follow these characters through this film. This is Mark Ruffalo's best performance. This is a great performance by Leonardo DiCaprio, and you see him completely break down in that scene where he's holding his wife and she just crumbles away is heartbreaking and extremely memorable. And that twist is it gives this movie notoriety because it's such a crazy twist at the end, and that people who this is the first time watching it might not know it borrows these other things from other movies. But J. Edgar Hoover is not interesting or likable as an individual. It gets very, very quickly. It's very important, very large, self-important, and in a very bad filmography from Clint Eastwood, it's easily the worst film in Clint Eastwood's filmography.
And time. All right, Alex, over to you.
J. Edgar follows the professional collapse and also personal collapse of one of the most important men in the United States at the time. If you don't think that is compelling, I don't really know what to tell you. I think that Leonardo DiCaprio gives a fantastic performance that was critically lauded at the time. No, it is not successful and almost had a Nintendo DS version, which apparently version of the game, which apparently Shutter Island did, which I find very strange. It is not as successful as Shutter Island commercially, but I do think that it is the far superior product. Leonardo DiCaprio leads an ensemble cast for the ages. Armie Hammer, Naomi Watts, Josh Lucas, Judi Dench, Dermot Mulroney, and a very, very young Adam Driver to a successful, gripping, intense drama about this man whose personal life has gone to shit at the exact same time that his professional life has gone to shit. And if that does not compel you to interest, then I don't really have anything for you. It is, quite simply put, one of Leonardo DiCaprio's best works of the decade.
And time. All right, guys, it's been an excellent match. Unfortunately, only one can walk away the winner, so we're going to go ahead and put you guys in the back and let the judges come to their conclusion as we'll go ahead and bring them in. So in terms of fact-checking here for this, in terms of talking about what Shutter Island was inspired by, while neither of the ref films brought up here were directly referenced, the author of the original novel, Dennis Lehane, has said that there were direct inspirations when he was writing Shutter Island, and specifically when it came to the portrayal of the twist of the film. Specifically, he cited the works of the Bronte sisters, as well as Invasion of the Body Snatchers, being what inspired him most when it came to coming up with the concept for the novel. And then going forward, when talking about the runtimes of the film, J. Edgar does have a long runtime for a film like this. It comes in at about 2 hours and 17 minutes, which is not the longest it's been, but especially for 2011, it was long for a film like that. However, Shutter Island is 2 minutes longer than it, so it is also a pretty long movie, although that's actually par for the course with Scorsese. I'm glad that I wasn't the only one who came across the supposed DS game. Yes, that's an actual thing. It doesn't exist. Shutter Island had a PC game that was made, and Paramount had initially put in for a port to the Nintendo DS to be created, but it was never made because that's a horrible, horrible idea. Why on earth would you create a video game adaptation of Shutter Island and send it to a console that's mostly held by the children of parents who don't want to properly care for them? And then finally, with J. Edgar and the Screen Actors Guild, the film was nominated for 2 performances at the Screen Actors Guild Awards that year. DiCaprio was nominated for leading role, and Armie Hammer was nominated for supporting role, although neither of them took the award home. So with that said, Carrie, we'll go to you first. Based on the arguments, as concisely as you can get it for me, who gets your vote and what was the main selling point?
Okay, yeah, this again, so tough. Both of these competitors here are really great at going back and forth with each other. I ultimately went with Noah, and I think that it was mostly down to their closing, and I think in his closing, Noah just gave a little bit more about the actual elements that make Shutter Island a better movie. Alex gave us a lot about why the story itself was compelling and named the actors and everything, but he didn't really fully explain how those actors' performances like contributed to the movie, or whether the story actually was executed well in the movie.
All right, Maria, down to you.
I picked Noah. I just thought his arguments were better. Um, I didn't understand Alex's defense of J. Edgar the movie. I just didn't. I didn't care for that movie, but I didn't understand what he was trying to tell me about the characters that were going to make my mind change. But Noah's pretty good at bringing out all the stuff that I wanted to hear. So.
Okay, all right. Well, judges, thank you guys so much. I'm gonna go ahead and set you guys in the back because winner by a final score of 3-2. Noah McCausland pulling out the victory there. A hard fought victory for sure, man. This has been a really, this obviously you haven't seen the first match yet, but this tournament's been really good so far. 2 matches in. That was a real hell of a back and forth, man. How are you feeling about that win?
I'm tired.
Yeah, that was the consensus
so
last night.
Exhausted. Jesus Christ. I genuinely don't think I won that. And trying to be as unbiased as I can, I don't think I should have won that. I think Alex outmatched me every single time, especially that blind round. I don't think I deserved to win that blind round. And I think he deserved the upset with those movies. But I just thought he kept coming up with so many good points, and I had nothing to come back at him. And I'm happy I won. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to get to move on and play more, but I really think Alex should have won that. I kind of bluffed and kind of lied my way into this because I prepped this morning, and I haven't seen any of those movies that we talked about. So I didn't really have any prep at all coming into this.
He was so complimentary of your prep.
Exactly. That's why I didn't want to say anything. I don't want to give him an edge at all. But I wasn't feeling comfortable coming into this, and I don't know how I came out with a win. But he's one hell of a competitor and someone everyone should look out for.
Absolutely. Well, I hate to throw this on, but it's going to get a little more uncomfortable in just a little bit as we go ahead and throw the bracket up here. So, of course, Mehdi went through last week. You go through tonight. Your opponent is going to be the winner of the number 3 seed, Austin Pez Howell, or the number 14 seed, Zachary Shelton. Now, this is one of those instances where either one of those guys is a tough matchup because Austin is one of those competitors where at this point, unless he's playing literally a champion, people expect him to just blow through opponents based on his knockout record, based on his win record. People expect him to just blow through opponents. That said, if Zach can take him down and become a giant killer in a sense, I don't think anybody wants to play that person either. So it puts him in a position to hype himself up more than he ever has if he can take out Austin. What are your thoughts on the matchup, and who would you prefer to see going forward?
I prefer to see Zach going forward because even though if he would be the so-called giant killer, I still feel confident in my abilities. So obviously, I in my opinion, I think Austin's the better player, and so I want the easiest opponent between the two of them. I don't want to go against Austin. I've seen how he can play many times. I don't want to go against him, but if it has to be done, I will do it, and I'll try my hardest, and I'll definitely give it more prep than I have now. But I think Austin is going to be the one moving forward.
All right. Well, we will see what happens with that in the future. Till then, sir, take care of yourself. We'll put
Thank
you in
you.
the back, and we'll see you next time as we'll go ahead and bring Alex in. And yeah, man, it was a great performance within the match. Very back and forth throughout the entire time. And unfortunately, it just same as last year's tournament. It went to the blind round. Something that you hadn't experienced at all then, something you've only experienced once this time around, and it just didn't settle your way. How are you feeling though?
Fine. Like I said, it always starts out being play for me, and then I get like really into it and
Yeah, it's
serious.
how that goes.
I had a wonderful time, despite the fact that I did yell a little bit and curse a little bit. I apologize.
Oh no, you're fine. I marked
but
this is not safe for kids.
It was a really entertaining. Hopefully, it was a really cool debate. We got to talk about movies that I don't think people. These are not topics that people would be covering on this channel. Otherwise, I don't think Cary Grant is going to be a.
Not
I don't think
often.
Cary Grant or the Nightmare series is frequently discussed here, nor is Oz. So with me, you'll always get those kind of interesting, weird side topics, Oscars and Nightmare on Elm Street horror. So I like bringing that element to it. Noah did a fantastic job, prep or no prep. He deserved the win tonight. If he can do that on no prep, I'd hate to see what he could do with prep. Yeah, and I'll just have to try and be better next time.
Yeah. So then, moving forward into the next with your next matchup. As of now, there's nothing on the books. As I've sort of said to everybody, we're at the point in the season where we have maybe a couple of open spaces for matches, but everybody at this point has been booked into their final string of matches or their final match. So there is a chance that this could be the final match of the year for you. That said, if I have to put like a to-do list for the end of the season or next year, it's to get you back in the league before fucking July. Let's just the best that we can possibly do. Is there anything you're looking forward to potentially in a next match? Anyone you think you'd want to try and play if it lines up? I don't know, what weird thing do you want to bring to it next time in terms of strength? Because yeah, certainly it's always great to have new options to sort of throw in there for matches.
Yeah, when I think about the kind of interesting people in this sphere, I think about potentially a Will Cohen. I would love a rematch with Alan, who I think is just my exact opposite. There are a lot of people. Everyone is a worthy competitor. I think Ryan gave me a good go last time. There's really, whoever you've got is whoever I'll play.
Absolutely. Well, we'll make that happen as soon as we possibly can. We won't let you sit in the sidelines for this long again. But that said, until next time, man, take care of yourself. We'll put you in the back. And guys, that'll wrap it up for tonight's match. Noah does get a good win and moves on. And no matter who he plays next, he'll have a tough road ahead of him, as will everybody. If you want to see the sort of opposite side, the continuation of this matchup, you're going to have to wait a couple of weeks. Austin Howell versus Zach Shelton will go up on Friday, October 7th. So you're going to have to wait a little bit for that matchup to upload. But that said, in between now and then, we have multiple great matchups going up next Friday. We have Will Cohen versus Alan Shepard uploading. Both competitors just referenced by Alex as somebody he would love to play. Who knows? Maybe the loser will play Alex in their next match. That's their reward for losing in the tournament. It's a weird way to phrase that, but sure. Let's say that it could happen. The week after, September 22nd, myself, the number 2 seed of the tournament, will be taking on Kevin Poss. And then the week after that, Chad Webb makes his long-awaited return to the Battleground. Now with a kid in tow, he'll be taking on Richie Goodacre. I don't know if the kid will physically be there, but his cats will be there at the very least. So you'll get to see those again. With that said, though, thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to rate the video, comment, subscribe. I want to say congratulations to Noah. Thanks to Alex once again. And thank you to the judges who are here to help. You will see everybody next time. Take care.